Welcome to part 2 of a 2-part special podcast series with Darrell Beauchamp. Darrell is the executive director of the Western Museum of Art in Kerrville, Texas. This episode, we take up the recent awards won by the museum, its continuing educational outreach going forward, and what the museum has in store for us the rest of this year and a little bit further down the road. I know you'll enjoy it.
The Texas Hill Country is one of the most beautiful places on earth. In this podcast, recent Hill Country resident Tom Fox visits with the people and organizations that make this one of the most unique areas of Texas. Join Tom as he explores the people, places, and their activities of the Texas Hill Country.
The Hill Country Podcast. And today I have Darrell Beauchamp. Darrell is with the Western Museum of Art here in Kerrville, and he's graciously agreed to sit down and visit with me to tell me all things about the museum. So Darrell, first of all, welcome, and thank you so much for taking the time to visit with me.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
A little bit earlier this year, the museum won a pretty prestigious award. And frankly, that's I saw it in the paper, so that's what made me want to come down and visit with you and start this process. But could you tell us about the award and what it meant to the museum and you and your team?
And actually, there's 2 awards that we need to talk about. One of them was a national award. It was issued by True West Magazine. True West Magazine is a 75-year-old Western magazine. They feature everything associated with the American West. One cover story might be about Billy the Kid, and the next cover story might be about the American Goat. But it's one of the most prestigious magazines, and they voted us number 5 in the entire nation, and in what they call the top 10 rankings for American Western art museums, which I was thrilled about, because we beat out the Smithsonian people. We beat out, it's a niche thing, Western art, but there's still a number of good Western art, good Western art museums in this country, and to think that we're rated number 5 by the editors of Western Art Magazine. And what they do is they send people out around the country, and they collect data and so apparently somebody visited here, liked what they saw. We didn't even know we were in the running, didn't even know we were in a competition until they announced that we had been listed as the number 5 best Western art museum in the country, which, we've been so proud of that. That's a really pretty good hit for us to think we're in the top 5 tier of Western art museums. And then the other award is local award, and we're just as proud of that as we are. The readers of the Kerrville Daily Times voted us the number 1 tourist attraction in the city, and in the Kerrville region. And to think of all the things that there are to do in Kerrville, Texas, that we're the number 1 top, thing, that's pretty cool, And so for us to get something garnered on a national level and get something garnered on the local level, that's just way cool. So we feel pretty good about it, but we've worked hard the last 2 years to get the word out about us, to have good education programs, have good exhibitions, and I think all of that's beginning to pay off. So we're excited about what's next,
Well, where do you see the museum maybe a little bit down the road? And the bigger question I want to ask you, and you touched on this earlier with your education, the educational component, why do we need to still study and celebrate the cowboy?
Where do I see the museum in the next few years? I think more of the same, if you will. I think we're on a right path to sharing our mission, which is to tell people about the American West. I think that's important, and we're going to continue doing everything we can to get visitors in here to enjoy the American West. Leads right directly to your second question, why is that important? And I think the answer is really very simply, if you forget the past, you tend to repeat it. You tend to make the same mistakes over. We've had people who said, well, manifest destiny, the white man came across the country and basically wiped out the Native American, and we destroyed an entire people's way of life, getting them off the putting them onto reservations and getting them off their native lands. We killed their buffalo. We killed their way of life, and we did it for manifest destiny, the white man rules kind of thing. And they get all bitter about it. And the answer is yes, we probably did do that. But let's talk about that. I see people all over the country tearing statues down, and I tell every one of them, bring them here. We'll have that discussion. If that statue offends a population, that's wonderful. Let's have that discussion. We'll do the same thing with the American West. You want to talk about Native Americans. I've got a dear friend who's a Native American, and he is offended by our little teepee out back because it's kind of a generic white man's teepee, not any one tribe, and it's not done. And my answer to him was, help me build a better one. Let's have that discussion. Help me get the funding, help me get the right teepee. You help me. You become the subject matter expert, because I can't be the subject matter expert in every possible Western subject. And then we'll have those discussions. We'll set up workshops, and we'll set up seminars, and we'll talk about manifest destiny and the Native American. We'll have a powwow here, But if we're not talking about it, we're just ignoring it. And when we ignore our history and our past, we tend to make the same mistakes over. And if our kids aren't learning about it, what are they learning, right? They need to be learning about the Holocaust. They need to be learning about manifest destiny and the eradication of entire tribes of people. They need to be learning about the cowboy and why the cowboy was important and why he is important today. A lot of kids, why do you have to kill a cow? Why can't you go down to H-E-B and just get the package? It's kind of a joke, but it's not. And unless we're talking about that, unless we're talking and bringing in people, ranchers, for example, cowboys, to talk about their way of life, then that becomes the haves and have-nots become more and more separated. People who understand why we're doing it and people who don't get it at all, and we begin to isolate our population. So it's important overall, educationally, to keep the life of the cowboy, and the Indian and the trapper, and have those discussions, because we're an educational institution. And we're also pretty to look at. There's a lot of really good art on the walls.
So Darrell, if somebody wanted to get involved or support the museum, how could they do so?
It's real easy. Tell us that you want to get involved. It's really very, very simple. We have a very small staff. We have 2 full-time employees, myself and my assistant, Riley. We have 2 part-time employees, our educator, Darla Feister, and our bookkeeper, Cherie Smith. Other than that, everything we do is done by volunteers. There's 2 lovely ladies here in the library with us right now who have given years of service to the museum. Tens and tens of thousands of hours of volunteerism here at the Museum of Western Art. And these are people who have, in many cases, mostly retired, looking for something to do, looking to stay intellectually involved. And they can work in any number of areas here at the museum. They can work in the library, for example, and deal with the books and the researchers. We get people all the time who are calling and saying, I need to know more about wagon wheels, or I need to know more about the buffalo or the bison. I need to know more about the, Comanche tribe. And our researchers here, our librarians, will go through, find that information with them, give them good examples of works, photocopy things for them, help them with the research. Larry McMurtry wrote his book Lonesome Dove in that chair that you're sitting in right here, right now, back in 1984-5 when this place was first built and this library was donated. So people can work in the library. People can work behind the scenes. I have a volunteer who never comes in the building. He helps on the grounds. He helps keep the grass cut and the roadways, and the sprinkler systems working. And it would kill him to think he had to give a docent-led tour. It would kill him to think he had to work in the library. But he loves working outdoors. He loves working with his hands. He's a retired man who never quit working, And I have volunteers who work exclusively in the back part of our shop, if you will, checking materials in and out, registrar type things. We've had volunteers who help me with the books, who help our gift shop, our museum store with what they're doing. And so, anybody who wants to get involved can get involved. We'll find a place to plug them in. We have 35 of the best volunteers. We call our group the Remuda. The Remuda is a group of horses. It's the work string, if you will, of a cowboy who'll have a bunch of horses that he can always rely on. And our volunteers are called the Remuda. And it's a fun group. We get together once a month for breakfast, once a month for lunch, and once a month for an after-hours cocktail party. So we try to make it a social gathering as well. But people can get involved through volunteerism, through our Remuda group. Another way people can get involved is by joining the museum. We have membership levels, everything from a basic, $75, $50 membership, depending on whether they're a single or a couple or a family, or if they want to involve their grandchildren. There's just different levels for support of the museum. Membership's been growing the last 2.5 years because we've been trying to tell people this is such a wonderful place to be. It's a great environment with good stuff in a lovely facility, and they support it. We're a 501c3 nonprofit, which means we are completely dependent upon the kindness of others to make our budget. And so people can get involved by becoming members. They can get involved by coming to our events. We have a Wild West Wine Wednesday event every month. We have workshops. We have children's events. We have every year throughout the year, different things that we do at different times. And they can watch our website and be a part of our email list. They can be involved in the museum by going out to the website and seeing our interactive. We have a tour of this building on our website. You can go in and spend 360 degrees looking around in this building. It was one of those projects we worked on during COVID, when we didn't have any guests, photographing the entire building and stitching all those pictures together. So kind of a Google look at the building. People can get involved by donating their artworks. We have a lot of people who donate artwork to us to build our permanent collection. They can donate books. They can come in and help. They can donate jewelry, for example, to our estate jewelry section of our museum store. It's been very good for us. What does a woman do when her children and her grandchildren don't like her jewelry, and she knows she doesn't want to put it in a garage sale? Donate it to the Museum of Western Art. We turn around, price it correctly, sell it. We take the proceeds and she gets the tax write-off. So lots of ways to get involved in the Museum of Western Art. And it's just a happening place.
Well, Darrell, unfortunately, we're near the end of our time for this episode, but one last question. Mm-hmm. If someone wanted more information on any of the topics we talked about, reach out to you or just find out more, where could they go?
Well, it's real easy. We're at 1550 Bandera Highway in Kerrville, Texas, right out by River Hill Country Club. So it's real easy to get to. Come by and visit us. That's number one. Our phone number is 830-896-2553. 896-2553. They can call, pick up the phone, and give us a holler. But probably one of the easiest thing to do is tell them to go to www.museumofwesternart.com. Museum of Western Art, just spelled out, .com. And what they'll find on there is a plethora of information about the museum, how they get involved. We also have a newsletter they can sign up for that gives us a lot of information. We send it out every Tuesday, religiously, every Tuesday afternoon. And it gives what's coming up that coming weekend, the weekend after that, and long-term plans for the museum. They reach out to us and let us know they want to be involved somehow. We'd love to have people come by and see us. We have a visitors program. If you're a firefighter, police officer, first responder of any kind, or active duty or retired former military, you get in free. It's part of our Blue Star Museum program. People pay it forward for the vets and first responders. We figure anybody willing to go to war or rush into a burning building or a bullet, like police and firemen, get in free to our museum. So we pay that forward to them. But visitation, $7 for adults and seniors. It's $5 for children. And, people can buy an admission pass at the front desk. Or if they're a vet, they get in free anyway. So lots of ways to get involved, but probably, museumofwesternart.com is the easiest way to to start that initial look, or call us at 830-896-2553.
Well, Darrell, I wanted to thank you again for taking the time to visit with me. I judge how good a podcast is by how much I learned. And under that scale, this was great because I learned a ton.
Well, I appreciate the new podcast in the community, the Hill Country Podcast, and I'm sorry we had to postpone this a couple of times, but glad we could be able to get it together, and hope people will continue listening to you and the podcast that you're doing. They're quite enjoyable.
Well, thanks again. This is Tom Fox. I hope you enjoyed parts 1 and 2 of my interview with Darrell Beauchamp. I certainly learned a lot about cowboy art and Western art, and I hope you will take a look at the Western Museum of Art. I'm going to link to their website in the show notes. It's a fascinating place and a study of a wide variety of cultures that is not done in many other forms. So check out the Western Museum of Art. If you're a Hill Country resident and you'd like to tell your story, or you've got a story to tell, I'd love to visit with you and have you come on the Hill Country Podcast. So please give me a shout. Email me at tfox@tfoxlaw.com. This is Tom Fox. Hope you've enjoyed both parts 1 and 2 to the episode, and I hope you'll join us again for another episode of the Hill Country Podcast.